千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we delve deeply into the Daodejing by Lao Tzu. So the overall idea of contentment is something that's central to the Tao. And therefore, I want to use a story to illustrate that. It's an actual historical account of a historical figure. And this is a story called Zhi from this chapter, which means knowing contentment. This goes back to the Ming Dynasty that once upon a time in ancient China, during the Ming Dynasty, there was a scholar by the name of Jiushao. The name Jiushao can also be pronounced Jiushao, but typically you hear people say Jiushao. It's correct to sound it out either way. By convention, I'll just say Jiushao. So Hu was someone who grew up poor, as were many people back in the days of ancient China. He grew up poor and he remained poor throughout most of his life. But despite his poverty, he was always happy. His life consisted of reading his books because he was a scholar, doing the work that he ought to do, and he could only maintain, subsistence level of living for himself and his family. But he was happy and satisfied with this. He was grateful, always had a smile, always radiated his inner joy, and every day he established a ritual. He had a pattern. He would burn incense and he would pay respects to heaven, bowing to heaven 9 times. And it was to thank heavens for the blessings in life, for giving him yet another day of goodness, of positive energy. He did this all the time. Now, it's important to note that nobody else did this. People at the time, just like most human beings that we come across today, people are usually full of complaints, full of negativity. They usually were talking about how they were lacking this or that, but he never did. Instead, he was expressing gratitude all the time. So one day, his wife, seeing him expressing thanks and gratitude to heaven once again, was making fun of him, was laughing at him, saying that, well, look, we as a family, we don't have a whole lot, and you know it. The meals that we have, they are the most basic imaginable. There's just the rice, there's, just a few entrees. There's nothing spectacular. There are no luxuries that we enjoy. What are you thanking heaven for exactly? You're thanking heaven for just the basics. So Hu responded to his wife saying that, well, yes, I am. And in fact, there are quite a few things that I am especially grateful for. He said, first, I'm very grateful to live in a time of relative peace and quiet in our part of the world. Notice that there's no chaos, strife, and misery associated with warfare. Historically, that hasn't always been the case. In fact, this is the first time in a long time, in the long history of China, that we've had extended peace throughout the land. So we're not fearing the danger of losing our lives to marauding military forces going back and forth. I'm grateful for that. Why should I not be grateful? And he continued, he pointed to the basic food that they had, just rice, some vegetables, that's pretty much it. He pointed to that and he said, I am so grateful to have enough that we can live not luxuriously, but at least we can go on in comfort. We have food on the table, we have clothes that we can wear to keep us warm. I am very glad, very grateful we're not out on the streets. We're not exposed to the elements, right? We're not hungry, not knowing where the next meal was going to come from. We're not freezing at night, having no place to stay. We have the very opposite of that. Why wouldn't I be grateful? That's the second thing that I'm the most grateful for. And lastly, our family, we have our family together. We are doing relatively well. We don't have anyone who is suffering a crippling disease or injuries. We don't have anyone in the family who has been imprisoned, who's in jail. We have our health, we have our freedom. Why wouldn't I be grateful, thankful for that? I have all the reasons in the world to be thankful. Now, his wife was not expecting such a long, lengthy discourse on the reasons to be grateful, but at the same time, everything that her husband said made a world of sense. He was talking about things that most people had taken for granted. Everybody who was complaining about how they were lacking this or that, they could actually claim the same things. Most of them also lived in a time of relative peace in that part of the world. Most of them had the basics of life: food, dwelling. Most of them had no crippling illness, people in jail. So most of them have all the reasons in the world to be grateful. So this is the historical account of a historical figure, and there's an important point here that I also want to make sure isn't lost. If I talk about those three things, you might say, well, but I know someone, who does, for instance, have illness, who is suffering from illness. I know someone else who has trouble with the law. So what about that? I don't have those three elements for which to express my gratitude, right? That would actually be missing the point of the story. Let me explain. What this scholar was pointing out was the basic truth. No matter what is going on in your life, if you look through the Tao, you can always see ample reasons for contentment. And I'll give you an example right here and now. What he said back then in the Ming Dynasty, it applied to the people that he knew. Right now, I can also look through the Tao at you, at me, at everybody involved in this meeting, and be able to say the following. First, we all possess the potential for betterment. What do I mean by that? Well, simply by existing, by being alive. You, me, everybody in this meeting, we already possess the possibility of making things better today than yesterday. And hopefully, listening to this talk is a good start. So we all have this potential for betterment. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing. There's no denying it. Number two, we actually have abundant resources. You may not think so, but we have time. We have human connections with one another, if no one else. We have unique knowledge. Everybody knows something that is unique to them. They bring their special knowledge and expertise to everything. We have abundant resources that we haven't even tapped into. We have everything we need. That's number two. And number three, we have the Tao. So this is something that applies to all of us, although I know that it may not apply to many people out there because they have no idea what the Tao is about. But you and I, at least, were able to study the Tao. We're able to become more aware about these issues that Lao Tzu is talking about. We, you, me, we all have Lao Tzu as a personal advisor. How cool is that? Why wouldn't I be grateful about that? Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.